Good afternoon, Valerie Ling here, clinical psychologist and director-founder of the Centre for Effective Living. Just coming to you live today. I've actually got my glasses and now I'm actually realizing that I can see the reflection going on. But I think this is better than nothing because yesterday on my live stream, I actually mentioned that it was becoming harder and harder for me to actually see the computer screen. And today I had a lovely coffee meet with one of the clinical psychologists in our practice, Tahani. And I was actually starting to find that I was having difficulty concentrating on our conversation because my eyes were getting a little bit tired and a little bit fuzzy. So I think when I do visit the optometrist, I may need to look now for glasses that aren't so reflective. Today I'm going to bring a category of the videos that I'm doing. Today's category is called Clinical Conversations. So I'm a clinical psychologist, and part of my hope is by taking the risk and coming online and doing these live videos that we raise an awareness for mental health. And hopefully if it's something, if it's a topic that it's useful, it might get shared or it might get commented, and we might together as a community raise awareness and help people to get help and assistance early. So the clinical conversation, hello, see I've got someone live with me. Let me know who you are and throw me a like if you can. So today's clinical conversation was actually a clinical conversation because I was having a lunchtime meeting, as I mentioned yesterday, with some health professionals, and the topic came up of self-harm. Self-harm. Hello, Scott. Thanks for joining me. Self-harm is a topic that is probably, I would actually like to see more conversation about, because I think it can be something that is quite misunderstood. I think there can be times when people feel a degree of helplessness, especially if they know someone who is self-harming. So I'm doing this video basically to bring that to the fore. Now, the reason why the conversation came up was the person I was talking to actually said to me, do you actually know the statistics for self-harm in Australia? And I have to admit, or I had to admit at that point in time, I actually didn't have it off the top of my fingertips. I do know certain other statistics that are relevant to self-harm. And so I thought I would jump on and actually share those statistics with you and what it actually means for us if you know someone or you come across this concept called self-harm. What is self-harm? Self-harm, I'm just going to read off a site that I will post in the comments. Self-harm means any behavior which involves the deliberate causing of pain or injury to oneself, usually as an extreme way of trying to cope with distressing or painful feelings. Self-harm includes cutting, burning, hitting oneself, binge eating or starvation, or repeatedly putting oneself in dangerous situations. It can also involve abuse of drugs or alcohol, including overdosing on prescription medication. So self-harm, it has got certain functions. Usually it's because the person who is harming themselves has got an incredible amount of emotional distress that is difficult to express. And the act of self-harming, that physical pain, it helps to somehow ease the emotional pain or soothe the emotional pain. So if you think about it, when you actually get a paper cut, let's say just something little like a paper cut, it really hurts. And there's a couple of things that will that pain serves. One, it alerts you that something's not right. Two, it actually helps you to problem solve, to actually get some help and to remedy it and to pay attention to it. And three, if you notice it, the sting of the paper cut, that initial jolt and pain, doesn't actually last forever. There are certain mechanisms in our body which actually starts to release chemicals to help us to cope with that pain. And so when someone is actually going through incredible emotional pain, there isn't really a similar process for emotional pain when you are by yourself. This is where we talk about coping mechanisms. Now, if you are somebody who has got a repertoire of coping skills under your belt, either because you've learned it from the people around you, or you sought help, whether it's through your personal networks or professional networks, when you're actually starting to notice that you're feeling something emotionally and it's actually to the point where it's causing you distress, you might then know when, how, and what sort of coping strategies you can use. Now, often the person who is self-harming doesn't actually have that. There isn't perhaps a sense of knowing when there's a buildup of negative emotion. There isn't any sort of coping strategy that has helped in the past, and there isn't really a sense of what to do in terms to soothe that emotional pain. So one of the things I want to straight up say is one of the common things that I hear is that self-harm is an act of attention-seeking behavior. Well, I can think of 1,000 better ways to get attention if I really wanted attention, because the act of actually hurting yourself is an incredibly difficult thing to do. We have several mechanisms within us that actually prevents us from getting hurt. You think of your eyes, right? Why do we blink so many times? Or the minute someone kind of points their finger at you, you have these immediate mechanisms to stop harm from happening. So actually, it's a counterintuitive process to hurt ourselves, and we have to override several mechanisms to actually successfully meaning go through with it with the self-harm behavior. So no, I don't think it's just an attention-seeking behavior. I do think in every instance, it is an attempt to somehow deal with intense emotions, and it is basically a cry for help. Okay, so we don't take self-harm lightly. We always say it's an indicator that something's not right, and it's an indicator that something is not right at the level of concern. Now let's talk about some of that concern. First of all, I said I would look up the statistics because it's actually important for me. Scott, do you know the statistics off by heart? Scott, who's listening in, works with us. He's just finished his psychology degree. Maybe you're a bit more up to date and in the know, Scott, with the statistics. Here it is. Okay. Alrighty. The number, hang on. Blah, 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 blah. Here it is. Okay. It says here, again, I will actually share the sites that I'm taking this information from. It says that it is difficult to estimate the rate of self-harm. Unfortunately not, says Scott. That's okay, Scott. I wasn't in the know either. Hence, I'm actually thinking this is a topic that probably needs more airtime and awareness. Back to the statistic. It is difficult to estimate the rate of self-harm, as evidence suggests that less than 13% of young people who self-harm will present for hospital treatment. Evidence from Australian studies suggest that 68% of young people aged 15 to 24 years engage in self-harm in any 12-month period. Lifetime prevalence rates are higher, with 17% of Australian females and 12% of males aged 15 to 19 years, and 24% of females and 18% of males aged 20 to 24 years reporting self-harm at some point in their life. And the mean age of onset is approximately 17 years. Now, when you look at the statistics, these percentages are not in the 0.001%. or the 0.01%. No, we're actually talking double-digit percents most of the time in those statistics. So yes, it does happen. And every time we come across a situation where a young person or an individual has reported self-harm, we really need to take it seriously, and we really need to start making those motions and gestures to not judge, to accept that it's a really painful thing that they're going through, to listen, and to actually help them bridge that point of contact to get help, right? So I like to use a sort of a symbolic gesture to say that if someone's actually raising their hand, even if we can't understand the method by which they're raising their hands, in this instance self-harm for help, right? You can't fix and solve that. But what we can do is be another hand in that space, opening it and saying, when you're ready, I'm here to help, or to listen, or to help you get to that next point together, right? Now, we want to also say that self-harm, while it may not have the intention of suicide, a fatality, it does elevate the risk, because in an impulsive moment when someone is really distressed, they may use a method, or they may impulsively get to the point where what they're doing is actually imminently dangerous. So it's really important to encourage the person who's self-harming to get help. And we want to do that in a way that doesn't shame them or make it even more difficult for them to talk about it, which is not what I want this video to be about, because I actually think it requires a little bit more thought through, considered approach and action. What I would encourage you to do is to jump onto the sites that I've listed in the comments. Jump over to the comments part. If you have any questions, I would more than love to answer it, or the team would love to jump on and help you answer it. And finally, because this topic doesn't get talked about very much, if this is something that's resonated with you because you recognize that self-harm is a topic that is quite common and yet not a lot of people talk about it, I'd encourage and invite you to share it amongst your networks. I'll catch you later.